Well, good morning, Fairfax Baptist Church family. It is a beautiful Wednesday morning, and spring has definitely arrived in Northern Virginia. And I hope that you are finding ways to enjoy it these days. I want to take just a few moments to do a couple of things. One, to say thank you. And I can't run down the list because it would be too long and I'd forget somebody. But thank you to all of you who made these last couple of weeks possible, particularly our Easter weekend events. For those of you who filled in while David was away in the church office, so many of you went extra miles, early extra miles, particularly this past weekend. We had a beautiful time of worship together. For those of you who work with the technology to make us, to allow us to connect, for those of you who worked behind the scenes and provided worship leadership in each of those times from Thursday night and Friday and our Sunday morning services on Easter, I just want to say a very special thank you. It was a beautiful time of worship and celebration together. This week, we kind of go back to church in the box a little bit. We go back inside, regular time, 11 o'clock. You know how to join with us. We encourage you to regather if you have yet to begin doing so. And you can do so safely with the social distancing, the masks that we're still requiring. We hate for that inconvenience, but we're doing that as long as we need to, as we are looking for ways to transition, to expand that box a little bit, to get back to some of the things that were a little bit of our pre-COVID kind of normal, of some of our gatherings and things of that nature. So be looking forward for that in the weeks to come, particularly as summer is quickly approaching. But this week, 11 o'clock in the sanctuary, if you're not regathering yet, you know how you can connect with us by going to our church website, clicking on that blue Watch Now button, and you'll be able to join with us in worship. And I want us to think about some things those last days right after Easter, those last days that Jesus spent before he ascended. And particularly this week, we're going to look at what is, I'm guessing for many, if not most of you, a familiar story of that lost week that Thomas had. If you look at John 20, which is where we'll be on Sunday, and you look at that story, you notice that Thomas missed out on being where Jesus was with his disciples, and he didn't respond very positively to the testimony. He said, I want to see with my own eyes, I want to touch with my own hands. And then scripture says a week later. And so I want us to think and explore a little bit about what that week might have looked like for Thomas. Wondering if, as his friends just knew in their heart that Jesus had risen, and Thomas had those doubts. He wanted that same experience. He wanted to believe, but he didn't quite have that experience that they did. And it didn't change the fact that Jesus was alive. He did conquer death and the grave. And in a way, Thomas missed out and had a week's delay. And what was going through his mind? What was going through his heart? What did that delayed response for Thomas? How did that affect him? Well, what I want us to do is think about the times we may lose a week or a month or maybe even a year, like during COVID, and to think about, okay, here's what I'm facing. Here's my fears. Here's my doubts. Here's how I see the circumstances playing out, and it doesn't make sense to me. Sadly, like Thomas, many times we miss out on living in the light of the reality of the victory that we have in Jesus. And the fact that even though we can't see it with our own eyes on occasion, and we don't see how it's working out, we still need to know that God is at work in doing something wonderful and miraculous. And so we've had more than a lost week for many of us. We've looked back over this last year and we kind of grieve for the things we didn't get to experience. And it's frustrating, even though the light is at the end of the tunnel, that all of that is not coming rushing back to us. There's still a pace and still some things we need to do to get there. And even once we arrive, what is it going to look like? How is it going to affect the way we do things as we explore ways to continue to expand our technology and our footprint and around the world even. How do we do that? What's it going to look like? And what about worship? Where are we now with music leadership and all of those things? We'll share a little bit more about that in the coming days. But I want us to look at those things from the right perspective, even when we don't always see clearly, even when there's doubt and concern and fears and confusion, that we can still live in light of that wonderful victory that we just celebrated. And so let's come ready. Read up John 20, read the whole chapter if you'd like, but read that part about Thomas and his wrestling. And we're going to wrestle with that a little bit on Sunday morning. We hope to see you there. Well, have a great rest of the week. Just a quick little touching base that I wanted to do today. And so enjoy this beautiful weather. Have a great rest of the day, Fairfax.